Hello everyone, welcome inside the Regents Room. The Regents Room is located inside the New York State Education Department building. My name is Carl Morrone, I'm a museum educator at the New York State Museum, and today we're going to take a look at this space. This room holds special significance because it's the monthly meeting place for the Board of Regents. The Board of Regents was founded in 1784, and it was founded long before this building was constructed. The Board of Regents was originally founded to act as the trustees of the college, and Columbia College was located in New York at that time. The Regents sought to oversee education of the higher education institutions in the state at the time, Columbia College and some of the other colleges and academies that were being planned in the state. So 1784, you have the establishment of the Regents, and at that time, people who became regents were often mayors, governors, and other politicians. It was their goal to get a public education system started. In 1854, we had the establishment of the Department of Public Instruction, and they were originally founded to oversee the high schools and elementary schools in the state at the time. So forming a public education system, you had this administrative split. You had the regents overseeing the colleges and the academies, and then you had the Department of Public Instruction overseeing elementary schools. High schools started to be introduced, and now you have a situation where the education system has to reorganize. And this was done in 1904. In 1904, New York State decides to reorganize the entire educational system. They want to include all the levels of education across New York State. They also want to include libraries and museums. They want to form the first ever in the United States public education system that covered all levels. And in order for that to happen, legislation had to be passed to form the State Education Department. And so that's the act that you have in 1904. It's called the Unification Act, unifying the Board of Regents and the Department of Public Instruction. And now the Board of Regents, their jurisdiction now includes all the educational activities in the state across all the levels, as I mentioned. So this building wasn't constructed yet. The original Board of Regents, the State Education Department was in the Capitol across the street. So now you have 1908, they start construction on the Education Building. And the Education Building, as you know, is the first ever education building in the United States. Now you have the architect Henry Hornbostel, who designed the building. He's starting to visualize the interior spaces, and he was also trained not only in constructing public architecture, but he also was trained in interior spaces as well. So thinking of a meeting place for the Board of Regents in the new building, he took this room and he really took a lot of experience and added a lot of detail to it. So back to the Regents now, in 1915, this room is officially established as the Regents Room, carrying that name. And from that time on, this is the monthly meeting place. So you have all the regents that come to meet here. And New York currently has 17 regents. This is a position that the legislature approves. Regents are often selected based on experience in the educational system. And you have those appointments being confirmed in the legislature, and then that appointment is for 5 years. One regent is appointed from each of the 13 judicial districts, and then you have 4 appointed at large. And together, they provide this oversight for the educational system in New York. It's headed by a chancellor. So the chancellor is the presiding officer of the regents. The regents work legislatively. So any law or standard that they have to implement has to be approved by the legislature following the Constitution, state constitution. And then you have the Commissioners of Education. The board appoints the Commissioners of Education, and it's the commissioner's role to administrate these policies and procedures. The commissioner is also able to staff the department and provide the general supervision over the educational system. So there's some pictures right below to look at what a full Regents meeting looks like. And what you'll see is at the top, you'll see an original photo. This photo is from 1913. And you'll see the original Regents meeting. You'll notice that the doors are the same. I don't think it's the same table, but you have some of the original members there. Below is some more recent meetings where you have all the regents present, the different staffs of the department, the commissioners. You also have press people in there as well. So next I want to look at take a look at some of the decor in the room and some of the details. So let's look at the walls first. So if you notice around the room, the walls are made of Indiana limestone. And you'll see a lot of portraits that cover the walls. The portraits are all of past chancellors, some of which we'll talk about in a second. If we look at the ceiling, turn my light on, I want you to see this lovely carved oak ceiling. And this is a very nice complement of the room. But I want to point out a symbol that you see along the top here. This is a symbol that we also see in the building. We see it in other places. This is the ancient symbol. It's called the svatsika, and it represents good fortune and well-being. And so this is above the table here, offering that to the regents and the work that they undertake. You also see some lovely detail here on the lower end of the ceiling on the cornice. On the cornice, there's actually Corinthian columns carved into here, and it's a lovely detail. There's also Corinthian columns on the outside of the building, if you're familiar with what it looks like. On the lower end, you'll see a symbol that you're familiar with. You've seen this before. This is a famous ancient symbol. This is the Greek key fret, and this is at the bottom here. We see this in the building as well. We see this in the rotunda and also in the lobby. Now, to decorate the wall, some of the portraits I mentioned were chancellors. We have, not all of them are able to be present in the room, obviously, but you see most of the chancellors are depicted, some with different scenes, some of them wearing their academic robes and regalia, things designating their degrees. But there's a portrait on the wall that the person didn't officially bear the title of chancellor, and this is the portrait that's above the exit sign. And I'll illuminate it a little bit. And this is someone that is famous in United States history, obviously. This is Alexander Hamilton. Alexander Hamilton has a very storied history in the state, but he was also involved with the educational system. I mentioned in the beginning the founding of the Board of Regents in 1784. Alexander Hamilton at that time, we know after the Revolution, we know he's in New York. He is now he's practicing law, and now he's also a member of the legislature at that time. This idea, he's thinking about ideas of centralization, and he's really thinking about education, the educational system in New York. Alexander Hamilton, as a legislative member, really starts to get this idea flowing of forming an oversight board for the Columbia College. Columbia College was established out of King's College. King's College, of course, was used as an encampment during the Revolution, and now it was trying to reestablish it. It was trying to be reestablished as a college in New York. And being one of the first ones, Alexander Hamilton really seeks to have oversight of not only that college, but ones that would come after, and eventually the entire educational system. So now the legislature, this bill is moved forward. This act was passed in 1784, and that is the founding of the Board of Regents. And Alexander Hamilton is actually an original member. He's an original regent. He served for 3 years, 1784 till 1787. And in 1787, he was actually instrumental in another act. I mentioned trying to centralize control of the educational system and trying to add academies into the jurisdiction. he's really instrumental in this Act of 1787 that incorporates the academies. So you have the beginnings of this educational system now starting to incorporate all these other institutions and levels. So of course, this is 3 years. He's no longer, after 1787, he's no longer regent, and goes back to his duties as a legislator. But so now you have the formation of the State Education Department, and 1904, you have this room. They're looking for portraits to hang of past chancellors, and they have him. And of course, he didn't officially carry that title of chancellor, but I think that, here, including him in the walls here of the regents' room now, for the regents overseeing this regents' room and being in the room for the monthly meetings, Alexander Hamilton. The State Education Department is really something that's the end point of his vision, centralizing control, this having a public authority of education, and now overseeing all the levels in the state. This is something that he really strived for. So, State Education Department is really the end point of that. So, he was very crucial in the formation of the department and also the early regents. Another one to point out now up until this October 2019, the walls were only had men, and this was the case because, as I mentioned, only chancellors were allowed to hang in the room. The Board of Regents did not have a female chancellor until the first one was appointed. And Merrill Tish, if we go over here, I'll illuminate her portrait. Merrill Tish has the distinction of being the first female chancellor of the Board of Regents. The Regents had female members on the board prior to this, but we didn't have a female chancellor, and she has that distinction now. And for her portrait, this was a composed portrait. And a lot of the details you'll see, including the bookcase, you'll see the picture of the Board of Regents, the people she served with at the time. A lot of the details were very personalized, and of course it was unveiled, and it is nice to see this portrait included in here. If some background info on past chancellors, if you scroll to the right a little bit, you'll see a panel. This panel has all the past chancellors of the Board of Regents. Now, I want you to see the fireplace. The fireplace is very lovely. I think it's one of the focal points of the room. The fireplace you'll see is also Indiana limestone. It is a working fireplace, of course, because of safety reasons. It's not supposed to be used, but there's really nice detail in the fireplace itself. I'll light the back. The back of the fireplace actually has the seal of New York State. If you can get all that. And as you come up, we have the official state seal of the New York State Education Department. Greek key or meander fret is also on there, another classical detail. Lovely egg and dark there at the top. And on the side, we have door columns that make the exterior here of the fireplace. All right, we have time to answer any questions. If anyone has any details we didn't point out, any questions about the regents, the history. Well, thanks for joining me today. I hope you enjoy seeing the interior, this space here in the New York State Education Department building. And also look for more Facebook Live at the New York State Museum. And thank you for joining me today.